But this was we're the only country that has that in the Constitution. We're lucky, but we don't know it. We don't care. When I tell people, they just don't care because they realize they can't do anything about it. They're scared to death. Me, I'll lose a raise, or my children will get harassed at school, or I won't get the promotion. They're scared.
It's all comfort first. Comfort above
You're scared.
everything.
You're scared. Every one of you is scared. You won't do it. You know there are things wrong in this country, and you won't break the law because you're scared.
And you'd love to see people just rise up. You'd love to see people...
How else do you get a change?
Yeah.
You think some crooked politician is going to change things?
So it's going to take revolution, or is it going to take anarchy?
Close to it for the Ninth Amendment, because that's what we supposedly had at the beginning. The Ninth Amendment was in there to show that we are a free people on paper, but not in action. You can't do it. I mean, we're the only country that has it. Can you imagine that? I'm not campaigning for a new law or a new amendment. It's there, the highest law in the land. All it says is, just because a right is not listed in the Constitution, right to bear arms, right to free speech, right to assembly, just because it's not listed like they are, doesn't mean you deny all the other rights which the people retain. Because the Founding Fathers' rights meant natural rights, not legislated. We depend on legislated rights, which can be manipulated at will. That's why the 14th Amendment was concocted. They cobbled it out of all the other amendments. But they didn't realize that everything the 14th Amendment does was already in the Constitution. So was the right of free speech there. Everything was there.
Well, here's what's interesting to me, Jack, and it's an amazing argument that you make across the board, and it's one that we didn't hear during your trials. It was a time where it was just about the euthanasia and nothing else.
They don't allow it at trial. They have a lawyer who talks, and every time he opens his mouth, the judge says, improper, or objection, sustained, you're finished. That's the trouble. We can't talk. The perpetrator can't talk to the victim or the judge. I would rather argue in front of a judge with the victim, both of us in front of the judge arguing, and let the judge decide if he's honest, which is hardly likely. Mm-hmm. That's the point. You need a Solomon. The only way the American system can be improved, they'll never allow, because they don't want to lose the power to enslave Americans, is to have the Supreme Court decisions appeal to the International Court of Justice. We don't even join that. We didn't sign the last treaty. We want to make sure we're not part of that so we can say, hey, we don't belong there. You have no right here, no jurisdiction. Because many of them will. You think that an international court would have allowed the Supreme Court to say blacks are property, not people? Or you can't drink alcohol, or the Japanese are a threat. Japanese Americans got to be put in concentration camps, or you can't teach Chinese children in Los Angeles schools. All those were declared constitutional by the Supreme Court. Wouldn't happen if they were appealed to the International Court of Justice. That's the only control we can have, because you can't change the court. You have to have a constitutional amendment. And that's going to block, because you got crooked politicians who decide that. Each state votes on it, and the states are corrupt too. Everybody's indoctrinated. Everyone's infested with this corruption. The International Court of Justice is the only way to control the U.S. Supreme Court, and nothing else can control it. President can't, Congress can't, nobody. They control everything. They are the dictator that makes sure we stay enslaved.
But you're making a huge leap when you go from suddenly you want individual rights and now an international court above our American
justice.
Yeah, but who can, like you said, who can trust into that though, Jack?
Well, there's more than one. There's a bunch of them, and some of the nations have a little more enlightenment than America.
One of the things that they painted you with back when you were doing the euthanasia was that you enjoyed it, that somehow this was very ghoulish. And I know your artwork has been shown to kind of show that you have somewhat of a dark side.
Take a surgeon who just transplanted a man's heart into another man. He enjoys it. You'd expect that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he's working his skill to the highest level, and that brings enjoyment.
What do you mean?
When a surgeon is at his highest level, that's going to bring individual enjoyment to anybody.
He enjoys it because he accomplished something worthwhile. I did too. But people say that's a crime. The church says that's a sin. The church once said, dissecting the human body to learn anatomy is a sin. And the one who set the anatomy, who's the father of anatomy and medicine, Vesalius, 400-500 years ago, would steal bodies to dissect them, and wrote a beautiful book with beautiful plates, illustrations of anatomy. It's a classic today. He got fired, told to leave university, because the church didn't like it. This is the problem. We live under mythology, which dictates our laws. Religion's mythology. I mean, we don't know if that happened or didn't happen, but why let it guide us today? They didn't have the need for euthanasia back then because nobody lived very long anyway. See? We're misguided in this country. We're born dumbed down. We're born into a milieu, an atmosphere where you got to be dumbed down in time. The parents are dumbed down, so the kid's going to be dumbed down.
So you did have enjoyment from this, from a job being well done, and you felt like you brought peace.
Did my duty well. My duty is to save, to prolong life if possible, and to eliminate suffering if possible. Well, you couldn't prolong life, but you could eliminate the suffering. And your duty says you got to do it. Just like a veterinarian. If he doesn't do it, we put him in jail. If a doctor doesn't do it, we praise him.
Kevorkian is the documentary, and that's Monday, June 28th on HBO. hbo.com/documentary/Kevorkian. Jack, you're an interesting and complex man, and I honestly think that when people see this documentary, you're going to wake them up to different things, because it's a much bigger fight and a much bigger discussion than what people ever thought that you were involved in.
I don't think so.
You don't think it'll work at all?
Words won't change anything.
You want action.
You got action. Name something that's changed in history that didn't take action.
And is that why you needed to go to jail? Is that why you needed
exactly.
to?
Now, I didn't do this to start a controversy. I did it to help a suffering patient that nobody would help as a doctor. I was lucky. I didn't have a family, so they couldn't take hostages. I was alone. What they did, the first thing they did to punish me was yank my license, medical license. Okay, you think a piece of paper controls my life? I'm still a doctor. I still know what to do, so I helped him. I did my duty as a doctor, despite the immorality of society. See?
But you have all this fight in you, and yet almost no optimism. It's almost like you're not believing the things.
I know human nature. You can't win. No. Jefferson hated the Supreme Court. So did Madison. He tried to reduce its power. And near the end of his life, he said one of his greatest regrets was that he couldn't succeed in doing that. I'm doing what Jefferson wanted to do. What's wrong with that? I'm proud to be the only one in the country trying. But I probably will fail, just like Jefferson did. But I'm doing the right thing. You know, someone said courage. They all say you're courageous. You know, no, they don't know how to define courage. Courage is knowing what's right. Everyone knows that. Everyone's courageous. But doing it is what's courage. And very few have that.
Kevorkian, the new documentary on HBO. Dr. Jack Kevorkian, thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
The Virus. Sirius 197 XM 202. Ron and Fez.
It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
It's Ron and Fez show. Friday, go USA. Beat the Ghanas. Beat the Ghanas. All right, 866 Ron Zero Fez. 866 Ron Zero Fez. We just spent like a half an hour talking with Jack Kevorkian, and I'm sincerely interested in what people think about the euthanasia thing. I don't understand why anybody would not like it there as at least an option. I thought one of the more interesting things that we found out from him, and I think he killed 133 people, but there was never a civil lawsuit. No family, no friend, nobody ever thought that what he did was a bad idea. You know, it was, you would think somebody talked my uncle into this, somebody got this. It is going to stay a controversial subject for quite some time. But other than the religious aspects of it, I don't know where you would go with this. I'm fairly cut and dry for me. Anything change your mind in meeting Kevorkian, Fez?
No, actually, I think it cemented it more because he was so intense in here. He was really, and as for an older man, you know, he's up there. He was intimidating to me.
That's a very strange thing to hear because I only saw him as a slight guy and actually a little on the feeble side now. He's much older. I did see him as being like a little more scientific. I don't know whether he was the right messenger. Even though I agree with the message 100%, I think some of the other aspects of him make it easier for the people against that because, you know, his paintings are all crazy and shit. And when I asked him, did you enjoy putting the people to death, he was actually a little angry with me. And he was like, yeah, I did. Wouldn't you if you're doing a good job? And I got that. But I think it would be easy enough from a PR standard to be able to handle that question a little better. But you cannot disagree with that man, Jack Kevorkian, at least started people talking. Let's head on over here to Bill. Bill, you're on Fez.
Hello, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I lost a family member last week who struggled with a disease for about 20 years. And to watch the pain he was in, and he was in like a hospice-type situation at home, I wish that this was an option. And the part of me that's a man said, you know, why are you letting this other man deal with this?
Right.
I just had like a confusion. I wish that I could be the one to take that power and just help the man out.
I understand that completely, and that is a very, very difficult thing for people. Here's Steve. Steve in Philly, you're on the Ron and Fez show.
Hey, Ron. You know what? I was thinking about this, and I'm a hospice nurse down here in Philadelphia for 19 years. And what I found was, in my experience, that there are 4 types of pain. And when people are suffering with these 4 types of pain, physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, they don't want to be here. The problem is, if you don't have the right people around you, the right group of out-of-the-box thinking individuals, you suffer. You want to die. So what you do is you get some company, you get the family around you, you get everybody together, all your assets, you gather them into one little group. Say, okay, what can we do here? And the answer that I've found over the past 19 years is rarely euthanasia. Now, do I agree that people have the right to make decisions about their end-of-life care? Absolutely. But if you don't have the options, you can't make a valid decision.
Now, you with being a hospice nurse, I bet you've seen families handle this every different way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had guys that say, give me the morphine, I don't want to feel a thing. I've had other people say, you know what, I see what my wife suffered with, and you know what, I want to experience that. I want to make this part of my life. Because like birth, death is as important as dying. Yet when a child is born, they suffer, and we don't